Captain Jake Morrison stared at the screen showing empty space ahead of his ship. The Horizon's Edge had been traveling through this quiet part of the galaxy for 3 weeks now. Jake's crew was getting restless, and he couldn't blame them. Space exploration sounded exciting until you realized most of it involved staring at nothing for months at a time. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," called out Lisa Rodriguez from her station. She was Jake's second-in-command and had been with him for 5 years. If Lisa said something was strange, it probably was. Jake walked over to her console. "What kind of strange?" "A distress signal, sir. Very weak coming from that asteroid field near the dying star." Lisa pointed at a cluster of rocks floating around a dim red star. "The signal isn't in any human language, I know." Jake studied the readings. The signal was definitely artificial, but the pattern was unlike anything in their databases. "How far into the asteroid field?" "About 6 hours at careful speed. The rocks are pretty thick in there, sir. We'll have to go slow." Jake thought about it. Protocol said they should report unknown signals back to Earth Command and wait for orders. But that would take weeks, and whoever was sending the signal might not have weeks. "Bobby, how's our ship holding up?" Jake called to the engine room through the comm. "She's running smooth as silk, Captain," came Bobby Chen's voice. Bobby was their chief engineer and could fix anything with moving parts. "We've got plenty of fuel and supplies." Dr. Amanda Foster looked up from her research station. "If it's an unknown species, this could be the discovery of a lifetime, Captain." "The chance to make first contact," Jake nodded. Amanda was their science officer and knew more about alien life than anyone else on the ship. If she thought it was worth investigating, it probably was. "All right, people, we're going in." Lisa, set course for the signal. "Bobby, keep the engines ready for quick maneuvers." "Amanda, start scanning for life signs." "Everyone else, stay alert." The Horizon's Edge moved slowly into the asteroid field. Jake watched as huge rocks drifted past the ship's windows. Some were as big as buildings, others as small as cars. Lisa guided the ship carefully between them, her hands steady on the controls. After 4 hours of careful flying, they found the source of the signal. It wasn't a ship. It was a space station built right into one of the larger asteroids. The station was clearly not human-made. Its design was all curves and flowing lines, very different from the straight edges humans preferred. "Scanning now," Amanda reported. "I'm reading 43 life forms aboard the station. The atmosphere is similar to Earth's, but with more nitrogen. Temperature is cool, maybe 50 degrees. Any signs of technology?" Jake asked. "Definitely. Power readings, artificial gravity, life support systems. But everything looks damaged. They're losing atmosphere fast." Jake could see it now. Parts of the station had holes in them, and white clouds of air were streaming out into space. Whatever had happened here, these people were in serious trouble. "Any response to our hails?" "Nothing yet, sir." "But wait." Lisa adjusted her controls. "I'm getting something now. Audio only, very weak." A harsh, growling voice came through the speakers. The words were in broken galactic standard, the common language used for trade between species. "Human ship, stay away. We want no trouble." Jake picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Horizon's Edge. We received your distress signal. Do you need assistance?" There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, sounding suspicious. "Humans help no one but humans." "Go away." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa shrugged. Amanda was studying her scanners with a worried expression. Bobby's voice came over the comm from the engine room. "Captain, their life support is failing fast. At this rate, they've got maybe 6 hours before they lose all their air." Jake made his decision. "Unknown station, this is Captain Morrison. Your life support systems are failing. We have the technology to help repair them. Please allow us to dock." Another long pause. Then a different voice came through, older and rougher. "I am Throck. You dock, but know this, any trick and you die." "We have weapons." "Understood," Jake replied. "We're approaching your docking port now." Lisa guided the ship to a tube-like structure extending from the station. The docking process was tricky because the station's systems were so different from human designs. But she managed to connect successfully. Jake, Lisa, Amanda, and Bobby put on their emergency suits just in case. When the airlock opened, they got their first look at the beings who had built this station. They were like wolves that had learned to walk upright. 7 feet tall, covered in thick gray fur, with powerful muscles and sharp claws. Their eyes were bright amber, and their faces were long and narrow like a dog's. The leader, who had to be Throck, had several scars across his face and was missing part of one ear. Throck held a weapon that looked like a cross between a rifle and a sword. Behind him stood 4 other warriors, all armed and ready for trouble. They were impressive and frightening at the same time. "You are the humans," Throck said, his accent thick but understandable. "Why do you help us? What do you want?" Jake removed his helmet, showing he trusted them. "We help because you need help. That's reason enough." Throck's amber eyes studied Jake's face for a long moment. Behind the warriors, Jake could see other wolf beings watching from doorways. Some were smaller, females maybe, or young ones. They all looked scared and tired. "Our power core is damaged," Throck said finally. "Air pumps failing. Heat failing. If not fixed soon, we all die." Amanda stepped forward with her scanner. "May I examine your systems?" "I'm a scientist. I might be able to help." One of the other warriors growled something in their own language. Throck snapped back at him, clearly giving orders. Then he looked at Amanda. "You may look, but touch nothing without permission." Bobby was already studying the walls and ceiling. "Captain, their technology is actually pretty advanced. Different from ours, but well designed. If we can figure out their power systems, we should be able to help." Jake nodded. "All right, people. Let's see what we can do. Throck will need access to your engineering sections." Throck's scarred face showed doubt, but he nodded slowly. "Follow me. But remember, we watch everything you do." As they walked deeper into the station, Jake noticed small faces peering at them from side passages. Young wolf beings, curious about these strange visitors. One tiny cub, barely knee-high, stepped into the corridor and stared at Jake with huge amber eyes. Jake smiled and gave a small wave. The cub's tail wagged once before its mother quickly pulled it back into hiding. Maybe this wouldn't be as difficult as it seemed. Bobby Chen wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on the power core deep inside the station. The Karathi technology was strange but logical once you understood it. Their power systems used crystals that stored and focused energy in ways humans had never thought of. "Hand me that tool there," Bobby said to the Karathi engineer working beside him. The wolf being's name was Gron, and despite the language barrier, they had figured out how to work together. Gron was smart and knew his systems well. Jake stood nearby, watching both the repairs and the armed guards who still kept their weapons ready. Throck had relaxed slightly, but trust came slowly to these people. Jake couldn't blame them. They were clearly refugees from something terrible, and strangers had probably meant trouble for them before. Amanda was in another section, studying their life support systems with a female Karathi who seemed to be their chief medical officer. Dr. Foster was fascinated by how different species had solved the same problems of living in space. "Captain," Lisa's voice came through his comm device. "I'm reading some strange energy fluctuations in the station's outer hull. Might want to check it out." Before Jake could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the station. The Karathi immediately went into action, shouting orders in their own language. Throck grabbed Jake's arm with a grip that could have crushed bone. "What did you do?" Throck demanded, his amber eyes blazing with anger. "Nothing. We're trying to help." Jake pulled out his comm. "Bobby, report." "It's not us, Captain. Something in their old systems just overloaded. I think it triggered a chain reaction." The station shook violently. Through the metal walls, they could hear the sound of tearing metal and escaping air. Emergency lights began flashing red throughout the corridor. Throck let go of Jake and barked orders to his people. The Karathi scattered in different directions, clearly following emergency procedures they had practiced many times. Jake and his crew found themselves swept along in the organized chaos. They reached a main corridor where dozens of Karathi were gathering. Adults carried emergency packs and herded youngsters toward what looked like escape pods. The smaller cubs were crying in high-pitched whines that sounded heartbreaking even if you didn't understand their language. "Hull Section 7 is gone," one warrior reported to Throck in Galactic Standard. "Hull breach spreading. We must evacuate. Wait!" A female voice cried out in accented Standard. A gray-furred Karathi female pushed through the crowd toward Throck. Her amber eyes were wide with panic. "Where is Yiska? Where is my cub?" Throck's expression changed immediately. He grabbed the female's shoulders. "Nala, when did you last see him?" "He was playing in Section 7 with the other cubs. When the alarm started, I thought he followed them out." "But he's not here." Nala's voice rose to a howl of despair. Section 7 was the area that had been damaged in the explosion. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized what this meant. A young cub was trapped in a section that was losing air fast. Throck was already shouting orders. 3 warriors ran toward Section 7, but they came back quickly, shaking their heads. "The passage is blocked," one reported. "Collapsed bulkhead. The opening is too small for us to fit through." "Cut through it," Throck ordered. "Can't, sir. The metal is holding back a major hull breach. Cut wrong and the whole section will blow out into space. The cub would die instantly." Jake pushed forward. "How small is the opening?" The warrior looked at him with surprise. "Small, maybe this wide." He held his hands about 2 feet apart. "Human could fit, maybe, but section is losing air fast, and the metal is still shifting." "Very dangerous." Nala looked at Jake with desperate eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Yiska is only 3 years old. He's just a baby." Jake didn't hesitate. "Get me an emergency suit. The smallest one you have." "Captain, no," Lisa protested. "It's too dangerous. The whole section could collapse. A child is dying in there," Jake said firmly. "We're not leaving without trying." Throck stared at Jake for a long moment. "You would risk your life for a Karathi cub?" "Why, because he's a child. That's reason enough." 10 minutes later, Jake crawled through the twisted metal opening into Section 7. The emergency suit was too big for him, but it was the best they could do. Behind him, he could hear Bobby and Gron working frantically to stabilize the damaged structure. The inside of Section 7 was a nightmare. Metal beams had fallen everywhere, and the air was getting thin fast. Jake could see stars through several holes in the hull where emergency patches were barely holding. "Yiska," Jake called out. "Can you hear me?" A weak whimper came from somewhere ahead. Jake squeezed between 2 fallen beams and found the cub huddled in a corner. Yiska was small even for his age, with fuzzy gray fur and huge frightened eyes. He was struggling to breathe in the thin air. "It's okay, little guy," Jake said softly, even though the cub probably couldn't understand English. "I'm here to help." Yiska whimpered and tried to crawl away, but he was too weak. Jake scooped him up gently. The cub was surprisingly light, maybe 30 pounds at most. That's when Jake heard the groaning sound of metal under stress. The section was getting ready to collapse completely. "Captain," Bobby's voice crackled through the comm. "Get out of there now. The whole structure is failing." Jake turned back toward the opening, but his path was blocked. A massive beam had fallen across the passage while he was rescuing Yiska. There was no way through. The air was getting thinner by the second. Jake's suit showed his oxygen was running low, too. In his arms, little Yiska was unconscious from lack of air. Jake made a decision that he knew was probably stupid but felt completely right. He took off his helmet and placed it over Yiska's head. The cub was smaller, so the helmet was too big, but it would give him air. Now both of them were breathing the thin air of the dying section. Jake felt dizzy almost immediately, but he forced himself to keep moving. He had to find another way out. Through the growing haze in his vision, Jake saw light coming from above. There was a maintenance shaft, partially blocked, but maybe big enough. He climbed up, carrying Yiska, his lungs burning with each breath. The shaft led to the main corridor. Jake pounded on the metal with his fists, too weak to shout. On the other side, he could hear voices, then the sound of cutting tools. Just as everything started to go black, the metal gave way. Strong hands pulled him and Yiska through the opening. Jake felt himself falling, then someone caught him. When the darkness cleared, Jake was lying on the corridor floor. Lisa was kneeling beside him, checking his pulse. Bobby was giving him oxygen from a portable tank. "The cub?" Jake asked weakly. "He's alive," Amanda reported from nearby. "Unconscious but breathing normally. You got him out just in time." Jake turned his head and saw Nala holding her son, tears streaming down her furry face. Other Karathi surrounded them, all staring at Jake with expressions he couldn't quite. Throck knelt down beside Jake. The big warrior's scarred face showed something Jake had never expected to see there. "Respect, human Jake Morrison," Throck said formally. "You risked your life for our cub. This is not something we will forget." In the background, little Yiska opened his eyes and looked around. When he saw Jake, the cub made a soft chirping sound and reached out with one small hand. Jake reached back and let the cub grab his finger with tiny claws. For the first time since arriving at the station, Yiska's tail wagged. Jake woke up slowly, his head feeling like someone had hit it with a hammer. The room around him was dim and warm, with curved walls that definitely weren't human design. It took him a moment to remember where he was, the Karathi space station. "Easy, Captain," came Amanda's voice from nearby. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. Your body needed time to recover from the oxygen loss. Jake tried to sit up, but his muscles felt weak. How's the cub? Yiska? He's fine. Better than fine, actually. The Karathi medical technology is quite impressive. They've been taking care of both of you. Amanda helped Jake sit up against some pillows. But I should warn you, things have changed a lot while you were out. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the door to the medical bay opened. Nala, Yiska's mother, entered quietly. She approached Jake's bed with careful steps, as if she was approaching something sacred. Human Jake, she said in slow, careful galactic standard. You wake. This is good. Behind her came little Yiska, walking on his own now but staying close to his mother. When he saw Jake, the cub's eyes lit up and he made happy chirping sounds. He's been asking about you every day, Nala explained. In our language, he calls you Spirit Guardian. It means one who saves life at cost of own life. Jake smiled at the cub. Hey there, little guy. Feeling better? Yiska chirped again and stepped closer. He was holding something in his small hands, a carved piece of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. He made this for you, Nala said. Cubs learning to carve give gifts to those they love. But this... She looked at the crystal with wonder. This is very special. The crystal only glows for those the ancestors accept. Jake didn't understand what that meant, but he could see it was important. He took the crystal carefully. It was warm to the touch and beautifully carved with intricate patterns. Thank you, Yiska. It's beautiful. The cub beamed and clapped his hands together. The door opened again, and Throck entered. But something was different about the big warrior. Instead of his usual suspicious expression, he looked respectful, almost humble. Human Jake. You are well? Throck asked, getting better. How's the station? Repairs are complete. Your Bobby Chen and our Gron worked together to fix everything. Station is now stronger than before. Throck paused, then continued in a formal tone. But we must speak of other things. Important things. More Karathi entered the room. Jake recognized some of them, but others were strangers. All of them looked at him with the same expression of deep respect. An ancient female Karathi stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, with silver-gray fur and kind eyes. Despite her age, she moved with dignity and grace. I am Elder Vera, she said in perfect galactic standard. I speak for all packs of our people. We have come to honor you, human Jake Morrison. Honor me? I don't understand, Vera's eyes twinkled. In our culture, one who saves a cub at risk of their own life becomes spirit bonded to that cub's pack. But you did more than save Yiska. You showed that different species can care for each other as family. She reached into her robes and pulled out a pendant made of the same glowing crystal as Yiska's gift, but much larger and more elaborate. This is the pack mark of our people. Never before has it been given to someone not born Karathi, but never before has someone shown such selfless courage for our young. Vera placed the pendant around Jake's neck. The moment it touched his skin, something amazing happened. Every Karathi in the room bowed deeply, even proud Throck. From this moment, Vera announced, you are pack friend to all Karathi. Our strength is your strength. Our protection is your protection. Our honor is your honor. Jake was speechless. He looked around the room at these fierce, proud beings all bowing to him because he had saved one small cub. I don't know what to say. Say you will listen to our story, Vera replied. Say you will understand why this moment changes everything. Over the next hour, Vera told Jake the history of the Karathi people. They had once been a great spacefaring civilization, with hundreds of worlds and millions of people, but 500 years ago, a terrible plague had swept through their empire. The sickness took our females first, Vera explained sadly. Then our cubs. Then our elders. In 50 years, we went from millions to thousands. Now we are maybe 2,000 total, spread across 12 stations like this one. Jake felt his heart sink. You're going extinct. Yes, our genetic diversity is too small. Our technology fails faster than we can repair it. Each year, fewer cubs are born. Each year, more elders die. We have maybe 2 generations left. Throck spoke up. That is why your act means so much. You saved not just one cub, but hope itself. You showed that others can care about our survival. Amanda, who had been listening quietly, leaned forward. I've been studying their medical data. Their genetic problems could be solved with modern technology. Not easily, but it's possible. We know this, Vera nodded. But who would help a dying people? We have little to offer in trade. Actually, Bobby's voice came from the doorway as he entered the room. That's not true. Your technology is incredible. Those crystal power cores, your metalworking techniques, your zero-gravity agriculture systems, any human colony would love to have that knowledge. Jake was starting to understand. You're asking for help. For your people. We are asking for hope, Vera corrected. For a chance to survive. To live alongside humans as friends and allies. Yiska tugged on Jake's sleeve. When Jake looked down, the cub was holding up a small datapad showing pictures. Karathi cubs playing, adults working together, families sharing meals. He wants you to understand, Nala translated. These are pictures of how we used to live. He dreams that someday all cubs can live this way again. Jake studied the images. They showed a vibrant, happy civilization. Exactly what the Karathi could become again with help. What would you need? Jake asked. Sanctuary, Throck answered immediately. A safe place where our people can gather. Access to genetic medical technology. Time to rebuild our population. In exchange, we offer our knowledge, our skills, our loyalty. And our protection, added one of the warriors Jake hadn't met. Karathi are strong fighters when needed. We remember our debts. Jake looked around the room at all these hopeful faces. 3 days ago, they had been suspicious enemies. Now they were offering to trust their entire future to humanity. I can't make this decision alone, Jake said finally. I'll need to contact Earth Command. But I promise you this, I'll do everything I can to help. Elder Vera smiled, and for a moment she looked decades younger. That is all we ask. The chance to try. Little Yiska climbed up onto Jake's bed and curled up next to him like a puppy. Within moments, the cub was asleep, one small hand still clutching Jake's finger. He trusts you completely, Nala observed. In our culture, this means you are truly family now. Jake looked down at the sleeping cub, then around at all the Karathi watching him. Somehow, saving one small life had led to this moment. A chance to save an entire species. He touched the crystal pendant around his neck. It glowed brighter at his touch as if it approved of his thoughts. Let's see what we can do, Jake said softly. Word traveled fast among the Karathi. Within a week of Jake's recovery, ships began arriving at the station from across their scattered empire. They were not impressive ships. Most looked like they were held together with spare parts and determination. But each one carried representatives from the surviving packs. Jake watched from the station's observation deck as the 5th ship this week docked carefully at one of the outer ports. The vessel was barely larger than a shuttle, its hull patched with mismatched metal plates. That's the Far Hunter clan, Throck explained, standing beside him. They've been traveling for 6 days to get here. Their settlement is on the edge of dead space where few ships ever go. How many more are coming? All of them. Every pack leader who can make the journey. This is the first Grand Council in over a century. Throck's scarred face showed deep emotion. Your actions have given us something we thought was lost forever. Unity. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. These people were risking everything on the hope that humanity would help them. If Earth Command said no, Captain? Lisa's voice came through his comm device. You've got a response from Earth Command. Priority channel, Jake sighed. He'd been dreading this moment for days. His initial report had been careful and diplomatic, but he knew the response could go either way. In the communications room, Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman who had worked her way up through the ranks over 30 years. Jake respected her, but he'd never been able to predict what she would decide. Captain Morrison, she began without preamble, your report makes for interesting reading. An unknown species facing extinction, offering technological exchange for sanctuary. Yes, ma'am. The Karathi have knowledge that could benefit many human colonies, particularly in asteroid mining and energy storage. I'm sure they do. The question is whether we can trust them. These are predatory beings, Captain. They look like wolves because they essentially are wolves. How do we know they won't turn on us once they're established in our space? Jake had expected this argument. Ma'am, I've spent a week living among them. They're not predators in the way you mean. They're civilized people with families and children. They value honor and loyalty above everything else, and so you say. But Earth Defense Command has concerns. We're talking about allowing potentially dangerous aliens into human space. What if they decide they want our worlds instead of cooperation? Admiral, they're dying out. There are only 2,000 of them left in the entire galaxy. Even if they wanted to attack us, they couldn't. Admiral Hayes studied him through the screen. The Defense Council has voted. We're willing to allow a small trial group, maybe 50 individuals, to settle on one of our frontier worlds. If that goes well, we can discuss broader cooperation. Jake felt relief wash over him. It wasn't everything the Karathi needed, but it was a start. Thank you, Admiral. The Karathi will be grateful for any chance to survive. Don't thank me yet, Captain. There are conditions. The settlement must be isolated from major population centers. The Karathi must agree to regular monitoring. And if there are any problems, any at all, the arrangement ends immediately. Understood, ma'am. Good. There's a world designated as Colony Site 7 Delta that might work. It's got good resources, but it's far from established trade routes. Low risk if things go wrong. After the communication ended, Jake went to find Elder Vera. The Grand Council had been meeting for 2 days now, debating whether to accept humanity's help. Not all the Karathi were convinced it was a good idea. He found the council chamber packed with Karathi from all the different clans. The air was thick with their scent and the sound of heated discussion in their own language. When Jake entered, the room fell silent. Elder Vera stood at the center of the group. Human Jake, you have news from your people? Earth Command has approved a trial settlement. 50 volunteers can relocate to a frontier world. If it goes well, more can follow. Excited murmurs ran through the room, but not everyone looked happy. An older male Karathi stepped forward. Jake had met him earlier. Korth, leader of the traditionalist faction. 50, Korth said coldly. 50 out of 2,000. And what happens to the rest of us while these 50 play at being human pets? They won't be pets, Jake protested. They'll be partners. Equal citizens with rights and protections, so you say. But we know how this works. First they take 50, then they demand changes. Abandon our ways, forget our traditions, become like humans. In 3 generations there will be no Karathi left, only humans with fur. Other traditionalists voiced agreement. Jake could see the council splitting into factions. Those who saw cooperation as their only hope, and those who preferred to die free rather than live dependent on others. Young Yiska, who had been sitting quietly near his mother, suddenly stood up. At 3 years old, he was far too young to speak in council, but something about his small voice made everyone listen. Uncle Jake good, he said in careful galactic standard. Uncle Jake save Yiska. Uncle Jake no want hurt Karathi. The simplicity of a child's trust seemed to carry more weight than all the adult arguments. Several pack leaders who had been wavering looked thoughtful. Nala stood next to her cub. My son speaks truth. This human risked his life for our young. If we cannot trust such a person, who can we trust? Throck moved to the center of the room. I fought this human's people when they first came. I was ready to kill them if they threatened us. But I watched Jake Morrison risk everything to save a cub he had never met before. This is not the action of someone who wishes to destroy us. Pretty words, Korth replied. But what happens when their government changes? What happens when new leaders decide the Karathi are too much trouble? We will be scattered and weak, easy to eliminate. Elder Vera had been listening to all sides. Now she raised her hand for silence. Korth speaks wisdom. There are risks in this path, but there are also risks in refusing help. She turned to address the entire council. Our population decreases every year. Our technology fails faster than we can repair it. Our genetic diversity shrinks with each generation. In 50 years, maybe fewer, there will be no Karathi left to debate these questions. The room was completely silent now. The human Jake has offered us hope. Not certainty, but hope. I believe we must take this chance. And if we're wrong, Korth asked quietly, then we die as we would have anyway, but at least we tried. The vote was close. 37 in favor, 26 against. But it was enough. After the council ended, Jake found himself surrounded by volunteers. More than 50 Karathi wanted to be part of the trial settlement. Families with young cubs, skilled workers, even some warriors who wanted to ensure the settlement's protection. Little Yiska tugged on Jake's pants. When Jake looked down, the cub was holding up a drawing he had made. Stick figures of humans and Karathi holding hands under a sun. For new home, Yiska said proudly. Nala put her hand on Jake's shoulder. We trust you with our future, human Jake. Do not let us down. Jake looked around at all the hopeful faces, young and old, conservative and progressive, all united by the desperate hope for survival. I won't, he promised. We'll make this work. But privately, Jake wondered if he was making a promise he could keep. The weight of an entire species' survival rested on making the right choices in the months ahead. Elder Vera approached him as the crowd began to disperse. "You worry about the responsibility," she observed, "wouldn't you?" "Yes, but remember, you are not carrying this burden alone. We are pack-bonded now. Your success is our success. Your failure is our failure. We will work together to make this dream real." Looking at the ancient, wise eyes of the elder, Jake felt some of his worry fade. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. 6 months later, Jake stood on a hill overlooking New Haven Colony and marveled at how much had changed. The settlement below bustled with activity as humans and Karathi worked side by side, building something that had never existed before, a truly integrated community. The planet itself was beautiful, with rolling grasslands, clean rivers, and 2 small moons that painted everything in silver light at night. Colony Site 7 Delta had been renamed New Haven at Yiska's suggestion, translated from a Karathi phrase meaning, place where the pack finds safety. "The community center is almost finished," Lisa reported, walking up the hill to join him. She carried a data pad showing construction schedules and supply lists. "Bobby says the fusion generator will be online by next week." Jake nodded, watching as a team of Karathi workers lifted steel beams that would have required machinery for humans to move. Their natural strength made many construction tasks much easier, while human engineering knowledge helped them build structures that would last for centuries. "Any word from the other colonies?" Jake asked. 3 more have submitted formal requests for Karathi partnership programs. "Apparently our mining output has gotten some attention. The crystal-focused extraction techniques are increasing yields by 40% over traditional methods." It was true. The Karathi understanding of mineral formation and energy concentration had revolutionized several human industries. In return, human medical technology was already beginning to address the Karathi genetic diversity problems. "Uncle Jake! Uncle Jake!" Yiska's voice called from below. The young Karathi was racing up the hill as fast as his legs could carry him, followed more slowly by his mother Nala. At 3.5 years old, Yiska had grown considerably. He was now almost 4 feet tall, with adult coloring starting to show in his gray fur. More importantly, he had become the unofficial ambassador between human and Karathi children in the colony. "Look what I made." Yiska held up a small device that looked like a cross between a human datapad and a Karathi crystal carving. "It talks in both languages." Jake took the device and activated it. "Hello, friends," it said in perfect galactic standard. When he pressed another control, the same phrase was repeated in flowing Karathi. "This is amazing, Yiska. Did you build this yourself?" "Jenny helped," Yiska admitted. Jenny Martin was the 8-year-old daughter of the colony's communications officer. She and Yiska had become inseparable friends despite their species difference. "We want all kids to understand each other." Nala caught up to them, slightly out of breath. "He's been working on that for weeks. Jenny's father says she has a gift for engineering." "Speaking of gifts," Jake said, "I have some news that might interest you. The genetic diversity program is showing its first results. Dr. Amanda thinks we could see the first new Karathi births within the year." Nala's eyes lit up. For centuries, Karathi births had been rare and often unsuccessful due to genetic problems. The possibility of healthy new cubs was like a miracle to them. "This is wonderful news. I must tell Thrak." Thrak had been elected as the Karathi leader for New Haven, though he spent most of his time working with the Human Colonial Council rather than giving orders. The integration had been remarkably smooth, partly because both species valued hard work and family loyalty. As they walked back down the hill toward the colony, Jake reflected on how much his own life had changed. Earth Command had officially promoted him to Colonial Integration Specialist, a job title that had never existed before his report on the Karathi. More than that, he found himself filling a role he had never expected, pack leader to a group that included both humans and Karathi. The crystal pendant around his neck had somehow become a symbol of cooperation that other colonies wanted to emulate. "Captain Morrison?" a voice called from the colony's communications center. Marcus Webb, their comm officer, was waving them over urgently. "What is it, Marcus?" "Priority message from Earth Command, sir. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you immediately." Jake felt a familiar knot of worry in his stomach. High-priority calls from Earth Command usually meant either very good news or very bad news. In the comm center, Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen looking pleased, which was a relief. Behind her, Jake could see several other high-ranking officers, including some he didn't recognize. Captain Morrison, congratulations. The New Haven experiment has exceeded all expectations. Thank you, Admiral. The Karathi have been incredible partners, so we've noticed. Which brings me to why I'm calling. We've been contacted by the Karathi settlements you haven't met yet. They want to join the integration program. Jake's heart leaped. All of them? All 11 remaining settlements. Nearly 1,500 individuals total. Elder Vera has been traveling between the settlements, showing them recordings of New Haven. Apparently they're convinced. One of the other officers stepped forward. I'm Admiral Carson from Colonial Development. We're prepared to establish 4 more integration colonies with you overseeing the entire program. Jake was stunned. When he had first met the Karathi, they were a dying species with maybe 2,000 survivors. Now they were about to become full partners in human colonial expansion. There's more, Admiral Hayes continued. Elder Vera has provided us with some very interesting information. Star charts showing unexplored regions, data on resource-rich systems, and, well, this is classified. But there are indications of other precursor sites that might hold valuable technology. Jake thought about the ancient knowledge the Karathi had accumulated over their centuries of wandering. If even half of their information was accurate, it could lead to discoveries that would benefit both species for generations. What do you need from me? Accept the promotion to Director of Interspecies Integration. Help us expand this program safely and successfully. And Admiral Hayes paused, looking slightly embarrassed. Attend a ceremony next month where the Galactic Council formally recognizes the Human Karathi Alliance. Jake was speechless. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council had barely acknowledged that humans existed. Now they were recognizing humanity as a species capable of successful interspecies cooperation. After the call ended, Jake walked outside to find a crowd gathering in the colony's central square. Word of the news had somehow spread already, and both humans and Karathi were celebrating together. Elder Vera, who had arrived on New Haven just last week, stood at the center of the crowd. Despite her advanced age, she had insisted on seeing the first successful integration colony with her own eyes. "Human Jake," she called out as he approached, "you have brought us more than survival. You have brought us hope for the future." Little Yiska pushed through the crowd and hugged Jake's legs. "Uncle Jake, does this mean more cubs can come play?" "Lots more cubs," Jake assured him. "And lots more humans who want to be friends with Karathi." As the celebration continued around them, Jake found himself thinking about the chain of events that had led to this moment. It had all started with one simple decision: to help strangers in distress. That act of basic compassion had grown into something that would change the galaxy. Throck approached with a formal expression. "Pack Leader Jake, the Karathi have a tradition for moments like this." He held out a new pendant, this one larger and more elaborate than the first. "This marks you as Alpha Friend to all Karathi everywhere. It has never been given to anyone before." Jake took the pendant with reverence. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "I'm honored, Throck, but you know I couldn't have done this alone." "Of course not. That's why it worked." Throck's scarred face split into what Jake had learned was a Karathi smile. "Pack is stronger together." As the twin moons rose over New Haven, Jake watched human and Karathi children playing together in the square. Yiska was teaching Jenny how to howl properly, while she showed him how to whistle. Their laughter echoed across the colony, a sound of pure joy that transcended species barriers. Elder Vera appeared beside him, moving with the quiet grace of her people. "You know, there's something I haven't told you yet about Karathi prophecy." "Oh?" "Our oldest stories speak of a time when the pack would grow beyond anything we could imagine. When children of different worlds would run together under strange skies. When the bonds of family would stretch across the stars themselves." Jake looked at her in surprise. "You think this is what the prophecy meant?" "I think prophecies are just another word for hope, given form through action." Vera's ancient eyes twinkled. "And hope, young pack leader, is what you gave us when you chose to save one small cub." In the distance, the lights of the first mixed human Karathi settlement glowed against the alien night sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they prepared to expand the program to other worlds. But tonight Jake was content to watch the children play and know that sometimes one kind act really could change the entire galaxy. Yiska ran over to them, slightly out of breath from playing. "Uncle Jake, will you tell us a story?" What kind of story? The story about how different people became family. Jake smiled and settled down on the grass. Around him, human and Karathi children gathered in a circle, eager to hear about their own beginning. Well, Jake began. It all started when some strangers needed help.